on all parts of Mediterranean, from Spain in the north to Italy in the middle to Greece in the east, and the situation about migrants in European countries, and including, of course, what happens in Norway. That is the context of me and the context of our work here, and also our work in Norway and in Europe. Today, we start out with a very timely report that UNHCR released today about the number of people who are forcibly displaced worldwide, reaching up to 80 million. That is a staggering number. And when you hear this number, what do you think of? What do you feel about it? That the world is getting displaced more and more, and it has increased, I mean, many folds over the last 10 years, and it is just keep growing. So what do you make of? What do you think of this, Victor?
Well, first of all, I'm very excited to be part of this very important dialogue. And let me take the opportunity to congratulate Norway upon being elected to the UN Security Council 2021-2022. Nothing would be more better than right now to have in such a powerful institution apparatus that maintains the world stability, to have countries whose commitment and priorities are human, and Norway is such an ingredient a country in terms of the world peace. And I feel like this is a good opportunity at the moment when we are struggling for a human identity. It's such an opportunity, and I congratulate the Norwegian government and the people of Norway for committing to carrying forward to the world the spirit of peace and spreading development. And also, it's always a great honor to take part in events organized in Norway. I have a strong connection in Norway. I've always been there. I met a lot of people, but also I'm a member. I have a working relationship with the Coretta and Martin Luther King Center in Norway. All has been about committing to how do we work towards promoting the culture, the spirit that drives Norway and brings it to the platform. And I do know there's been a lot of interesting dialogue in terms of the world movement, the population on the move, the generation on the move, the humanity on the move, but also, most importantly, the role the churches are playing in making sure that we understand the spiritual part of why the suffering, why the war. And then I think where it has reached, the world is in dire need of a powerful leadership and invocation of, of a platform that brings about human understanding. And I really congratulate the Norwegian church communities for agreeing to take lead in that. I congratulate you for organizing this discussion, and my pleasure that I'm part of this. So relating to why I feel the world is such a sobering statistics around the world right now. And I do know countries around the world, around the planet, have been very involved in so many ways, trying to see how can we address the plight of the people who are caught up in conflict. How can we address the plight of those who are forced to move, to flee? But of course, we are human beings. We are on this planet where we move. The question is, do you stay and wait to die if death is approaching? People say, no, we have to move. You have to run for refuge. You have to take refuge and run away for your safety. And then this is kind of the world we are in, but also looking deeper into the plight of the population, the plight of the people, the plight of the humanity. There are reasons why people are on the move. There are man-made disasters and there are natural disasters. I think from the church point of view, which your leadership is key in this context, and also from the political point of view, we need to look at how do we prevent the refugee crisis in the world. Not only should we prepare about how to respond to the next refugee crisis in the next 5 years, in the next 10 years, in the next 20 years. The question should be, how can we work towards preventing the next refugee environment, the next refugee crisis? So to me, the church, the politics, the civil society, the community plays a big role in terms of How do we bring about the narrative, the understanding that bring an end to war, ending conflict? There are situations that has forced people to leave. A lot of children have died trying to even flee Africa, crossing to Europe in dire need for a better life outside. Within the continent, there's a lot of movement. In the Middle East, so we do know, in as much as we are condemning, in as much as we are complaining about the refugee crisis in the world, we should also look at it. Where are we taking responsibilities? How are we handling the work to ensure that we prevent? And that's why it hits me with such a pleasure, such a joy that a country like Norway is going to take part in the UN Security Council over the next 2 years. At the moment when the world even needs more unity than ever, you have seen recently there's been global outpour of anger, of the racism that is, corroding the whole world. So it requires the leadership at a certain level to be at a key decision making at United Nations. So I'm really glad and I'm happy that when we bring this dialogue to the platform like this, give us opportunity to think more. What are we doing to prevent? What are we doing to make sure that we give human face to the human situation? So basically, it's a sobering statistic that people are crying and dying and are fleeing their countries and their nations. They are living their good life to live destitute lives. But our commitment as a nation, a community of nations, as a community of human race should be about bringing about an end to this kind of suffering. If it's man-made, we should prevent it. And if it's natural, we should be able to manage. So helping the society to be resilient enough to manage the crisis, should there be need for response, it's one of the fundamental areas that powerful nations, rich nations, and poor nations should work together to galvanize a means of doing this all together.
Very much. Thank you, Victor. This was a very good start. Very wonderful things that you said. I picked up some of those, and I want you to reflect a little more on, especially on this idea of man-made crises and natural crises. I mean, if we look into deeper, even natural crises, aren't they in a way man-made? Let us say in Norway we drive cars, and the atmosphere gets polluted, and that affects countries in East Africa, let us say, or countries in here and there. So in a way, from a single mile that I drive in Norway, I do leave an impact on somebody's life somewhere else. And therefore, there is an imperative that every nation on earth should take responsibility for the crises happening in the world, whether it is man-made or natural. Don't you agree?
Yeah, I totally agree. Absolutely agree. In terms of where we, in terms of how much is our action or our inaction impacting the world. But of course, people always look at a reason to blame somebody. In as much as I do know, yes, the greatest global climate crisis is being created in the global north, and the biggest impact is in the global south. I do still feel that, yes, there's a situation where when we are unable to control as African, but also we need to just be able to adapt to the new reality. How can we adapt in a way that will help us not use the natural disaster, which in the long term is a man-made creation, to be a reason for division, should be a reason for unity, a reason for us to work together and build a platform and engage in a way that will help us build a family. So much is happening in Africa. So much is climate related. There's flooding, there's droughts. There are so many other. We are in Uganda right now. We are in calamities after calamities. We have Corona, we have Ebola in the neighboring Congo is happening. We have so many other sicknesses. We have locusts, we have floods, we have drought in one part. And then you see, why all these multiple challenges? But one thing I always appreciated is we always have to recognize the resilience of people who are affected by these disasters. And I celebrate so much the strength that the African people have always demonstrated, the Asian people have always demonstrated. And actually, with the Corona, it has taught us that as a human race, we are just fragile. We are not as strong as we think we are, because it's not about how mighty we are in the space of fighter jets, not about how much money we have, but it's about, can we address the basics that makes everyone happy, that makes everyone safe. on this planet, because the truth of the matter is, if one of us is affected, so it is something that we do need to put a lot of energy on, and it's something that we need to focus and build a momentum to know that we are able to resist the situation, we are able to prevent. So definitely, man-made is there, but we need to still be able to prepare ourselves as African population to be able to manage and mitigate, the circumstances that will come as a result of natural disasters. There will be movement. People will always move, but should they be moving with dignity? The answer is no. We should make sure that even though they are moving, even though they are displaced, we should still maintain the basic fundamental right, which is human dignity and human rights and peace and justice. This is why I think your country, Norway, stand very proud on that pillars, and they raise so high the flag of peace and justice, which is good.
I agree that just to add on the realities of displacement and the choice and the necessities of movement should be kept together. There is a need for movement always, whether it is business related, family related, or all other kinds of movements, which should be natural, which should be human, which should be expected and accepted and facilitated, which in Europe we did a very good job by providing Schengen as a space where everyone can travel freely, even though these days Schengen is getting stuck in some problems. But also in Africa, there are incredible progresses have been made in facilitating. For example, one of the things that the whole world doesn't know about is that the only convention about internal displacement in this world exists only in the African continent, where there is a continental document, which is Kampala Protocol, which provides discussions, provides regulations on how to deal with internal displacement, even though internal displacement is still one of the biggest challenges for the whole continent. Moving on to the realities of the necessities and realities of movement on one hand, and the issues of displacement on the other, people often overlook the fact that Dubai has such a beautiful fruit of development, which we see these huge sky towers and all of that. We forget that poor people from Bangladesh and poor people from India, poor people from Pakistan and all Asian countries are flooded from the Philippines, from even Ethiopia and so on, come there and in a horrible working conditions. They build up those countries, Qatar, Dubai. Our world has overlooks that it is of the blood of someone that somebody has the luxury and has the power.
Exactly.
Just as in the old days, when industrial revolution brought all these wealth, it was at the expense of slave labor that industrial nations had the upper hand of building facilities and infrastructure and nations. And whenever I travel to European cities, I always wonder how many people have labored for this, and I doubt if they ever will paid justly. So in this unjust and equal world, the cry for justice is somehow related to this issue of displacement and movement. How do you see the issue of justice, the issue of cry for better opportunity? 100 years ago, when European young people traveled to America, it was heroic. But when today young people from Africa try to come to Europe, it is demonic. It is crime. It is immoral. What do you make of this?
Okay. Let me. I don't know. Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
Yeah. Sorry for the bad connection. It is sometimes goes off. Yes, it is true. First of all, to begin with, from the point of development at the expense of other people, and this feeling that if it does not hurt me, it's good for me. That's what people always felt, that as long as it's good for me, if it does not hurt me, it's good for me. And that's where I think we have seen that development watered by bloodshed, by human blood. And that's why we have seen development in other countries where people are ready to kill because they want to be rich. They're ready to take life because they want to be rich. But then the other question comes in. You mentioned a very important area, the Middle East. You know, if there is any continent so much on the move, is Africa. And I travel a lot around the world. I have been lucky that among many Africans, I've also been among the few Africans who have traveled around the world. I've seen what life looks like in other parts of the continent. And every time I fly out of the continent, my first time I was sad. I was heartbroken because I saw that the history has been so tough on our side. It's been defined by pain and suffering and too much that we are left on our own, in our own league. But every time I also come back home, I see there's so much hope. But the worst is to see that so much resources that leaves Africa is developing the whole world. So in short, I would say Africa has given so much to the world, but the world has failed to take Africa out of poverty. The world has kept Africa in poverty so that they can be managed, they can be manipulated. And recently, I've been having a chat during all these, and I've been traveling to Middle East. I went to Bahrain, to Saudi Arabia, to Dubai, to places. I met so many Africans who are doing a lot of work in security, in families, in houses and all that. It's heartbreaking why somebody is compelled to leave home and go and live a slave life. I met people whom I can say they're slaves. It's modern slavery. It is what is happening right now. And it is a few days ago, I was chatting with the Africans a number of Africans in the Middle East, where some are in Oman, some are in Saudi Arabia, some are in Dubai. And then some telling me that because I'm black, I'm paid half a price of what my colleague from Malaysia is paid. Because he's white, he gets twice my money. And because I am black, I'm paid less. Half of what my other colleague is getting just because of my color. So when you talk about the crisis that comes with migration, economic migration, it goes beyond the police brutality. It goes beyond the manipulation. It comes into the day-to-day why people are compelled to leave their villages for urban areas, why people are compelled from the urban areas to their capitals, from their capital to another capitals. So this is where we are failing to address the gap. Economic inequality, of course, we should move and do business like everybody else, but even if we're moving around, we should be treated with dignity. Indignity given to immigrants is totally unacceptable. That is one thing that any nation would want to shine in the modern world. It would be a nation committed to make sure that there's justice for all those who live in the land. I always say that Africa is a continent of all colors. Black and white, we live alike. And even though we've been through so much pain in life, we are still so committed to loving and caring for everybody. Everybody's welcome to Africa without any problem. So yes, we see a lot. There will always be global migration, especially young generation. In this era of technology, people are moving from one part to another. If they move, they should be treated with love and respect and supported. But if the situation is used to manipulate and still reinforce the feeling, the chaotic mindset of racism, of sexism, of sectarianism, religious differences, I think in the world that is doing our best to do much. So I hope and I do believe that we will appreciate that as human beings, we will move. We will always move, and everybody, wherever they move, should be treated with respect and dignity, regardless of where they are. Not because of their color, not because of their gender, not because of their religion. And I feel like this is where in Africa, there's a bit of tolerance, there's xenophobia here and then because of historical injustice and economic hardship. But we would hope that we should make sure everybody is treated with respect.
Moving on, we know that to manage both displacement, the normal human movement, and the both aspects of migration, the world has put into place both the older mechanisms like the Refugee Convention, the protocol, and then came the new mechanisms such as the Global Compact on Refugee and the Global Compact on Migration. The Global Compact on Refugees, I think I want us to discuss on these two aspects. One on the Global Compact on Refugees, which is the most urgent now, and then we come back to this idea of Global Compact on migration. Global Compact on Refugees has 4 objectives, which about 164 countries signed into, where they agreed that to ease the pressure on host countries, to enhance refugee self-reliance, to expand access to territories of third country, especially resettlement, and to support conditions in the countries of origin for a return in safety and dignity. So these are the 4 objectives of the new refugee compact, where many nations agreed, which Norway also agrees and does some things. And I wonder if you make some reflections on that. Do you think, I mean, even though that compact was agreed 2 years ago, not many countries have really followed it up. Now everybody is busy with his or her own troubles, and especially we'll come back to it when Corona comes. So everything else is focusing on Corona. So what do you think refugee issue? What will happen to refugee issue in the Corona world? What do you think?
Well, to begin with, I am also so grateful that the world over the years has been able to develop so many structures, so many powerful instruments, the instrument of governance, the instrument of leadership, to coordinate the global platform, to also support, the necessary environment for one another, to take up one another. But despite all these tools, despite all these instruments, there's a global compact on refugees and on migration. They are beautiful, with beautiful objectives, with beautiful vision, and all designed activities are there. But the question has always been, how have we failed? Why have we failed to translate this grand vision into tangible action? How have we failed to humanize the face of global refugee compact? We need to humanize it in a way that the response is key, but also in terms of for whom do we speak? Is it for ourselves? For whose benefit is all these compacts, for all these tools, all these treaties, all this convention? It shouldn't be for exhibiting our knowledge in powerful houses, in our secretariats, in our headquarters, in our capitals, but should be about translating tangibly in the life of the person I work for. There has been a lot of debate that for a better reform in this global agenda, in global, in global commitment, we should make sure that the people we are claiming to be working for have a vision that is driving our intervention, not us coming with a vision to drive our intervention for the people we claim to be working for. But the other way is the way to look at it is where the refugee vision leadership in operationalizing the global compact on refugees or on migration, all these kind of things. Yes, we talk about dignity, we talk about security, protection, and all these kind of things. But as somebody, the problem comes, the big challenge becomes like, you are here, you are working so far away from the people you claim to be working for, and you don't pay attention to the plight of the day-to-day life. Whenever I see refugees struggling on their own with so much resources at hand, and I wonder, who are we working for? Are we working for ourselves to make our life very sustainably vibrant, and we're good at reporting? And are we really translating what we are reporting into, into more practical ground? All I can say is there's been so many fundamentally wonderful tools and instruments of governance and of engagement in all sectors. But the challenge has always been, we make it so technical, too technical that it bypass the human reality. We make it so bureaucratic that it undermines the life and the dignity of the people we're working for. And it becomes what benefits us in our response to refugees. And this is where we need to, I'm saying, let us humanize the intervention. Let us humanize these tools and instruments we have at hand. And let us make sure that if we don't act on it today, somebody is going to die tomorrow. So because it has not been so humanized, it has made the instruments beautiful as they are, grand vision as they are. It has not been very effective at the grassroots level where the people or refugees are. So this is where my challenge is. Bureaucracy, the bureaucracy we have in the system is almost criminal. Why should you, because you are so safe in Geneva, you are so safe in New York, you're so safe in Kampala, to the point that you don't care about somebody who is dying tomorrow because of the decision you're making today. This is where I say, let us humanize all these global powerful instruments we are putting in place. Otherwise, developing it beautiful and putting it in the cupboard and where we can refer to it once in a year, it's a waste of resources and it's arrogance. Yeah,
that is very, very keen observation, and how what could be done to help translate these grand visions, which often also sits with the power of money as well. Then how can we come there where both the power and the money is, and bring some of it and spread it to where the people are and where their needs are? And that is the challenge of, as churches, as individuals. We have, of course, the simplest answer is, go vote for the political parties who will do that. But political parties, they promise one thing, but they fail to do it when it comes to power. So what could we do? How could we deal with this?
That's a very important question. What can we do? What can we act on that will, if I were to answer, the first answer would say, let us listen to the people. Let us listen to the refugees. Let us not trust so much on our knowledge to the point that we refuse to listen to the people. Why should we be so blinded to see that they're dying because we are not helping them? So the first thing is, let us listen to the people, open our heart, address humanitarian issues with the human heart, not with political power, not with intellectual knowledge, not with diplomatic bureaucracies and all that. That is one. Listen to the people and address humanitarian crisis with the human heart. It comes down to me, it comes down to you, it comes down to who is making decision at what level. And then secondly, I think over time, there's been a deliberate refusal to localize humanitarian intervention. There's been a deliberate refusal by international community to localize humanitarian intervention. I have seen it even manifested so heavily during Corona. When COVID came, the whole world was losing so many people in every single day. The TV news was heartbreaking and shocking. And I saw internationals got evacuated from Africa. The continent remained with only local actors. The decision-making power were evacuated from the continent. Because all international NGOs, even though they were here, they left only program managers, program assistants, who doesn't have any decision-making power. They left and they were evacuated to safety, either to Europe or to America, to Asia, which is good for the purpose of human safety. But it created a gap in terms of decision-making. We realized that, okay, as long as we maintain leadership, decision-making, and capacity so high up, then we are also doing it for our own benefit. We are not doing it for the benefit of the people. So that's why I say the refusal to localize humanitarian intervention is a big problem. If the world must move forward, the donor too must agree to the fact that for too long, we have talked about empowerment. Empowerment is not about, taking money and giving t-shirts and that's enough. No, we shouldn't be a t-shirt-based humanitarian response. It should be a practical development agenda. When you talk about education response during the COVID crisis, and then you think buying radios and taking radios and working with the Minister of Education in the countries is going to solve the education crisis. That tells how much you don't know about that country. Because first of all, radios are limited to the urban population. And how many families can access that? How many can afford the batteries, can afford electricity? There are not many, but now moving on to say, let us now develop education mechanism that you are aware it will take benefit not more than 5% of the students in the country. I think that's a problem. That tells you how much you don't know about the local population. So if we must move forward, let us localize humanitarian response. Let us build capacity so that when disaster strikes South Sudan, Ugandan civil society can respond. We don't need to wait from Geneva or Canada to come and do this. We have to do this. We have to do this. And Corona has taught us that let us not be so arrogant to count on our power, might to fly anywhere. Today is Corona. It just shut down all the jets and every other powerful whatever down. But what if next time there's a fault in the satellite system? That navigation flight will not be possible. Then one part of the world will die. So we need to be able to prepare for the worst and act in a way that will help us, engage more. And then secondly, we also, in addition to listening to people, in addition to localizing the humanitarian response, I would appeal to the donors. Donors should be very deliberate, to trust. Donors should be very deliberate to trust the local actors. Because the lack of trust is a very big excuse by international NGOs or international humanitarian actors to refuse to give support to the local people. Because donors don't trust people. 2 days ago, I was chatting with a youth organization in South Sudan, and in some were in Burundi, some also were in Congo. These guys told us that, they were telling me the story that they went and approached the donors to give them funding. And as they were asking, can you help us start on engaging in the Corona awareness campaign? The donors, instead of listen to them very carefully, instead of giving them funds, pick the fund and give to another international organization, where the decision-making power are in Canada right now. And now, for these local actors, I say, we only called and told that there will be a car for you to drive in with a public address mounted on the vehicle. You drive in the community, we shall put you fuel, we shall pay for your allowance. And they said that is empowerment. So what was this, where was the spirit? What was the spirit of the donor picking the money and giving to another international organization? That is not even on the ground to support program on the ground. So development partners, governments around the world must move on from the position of mistrust to the position of trust. Only with trust that the world will get together, change will come. Without trust, nothing will come. Nothing will come. And this is a moment that is not about right or wrong. It's about trying what works. If for long we have been mistrusted so much, I think it will take opportunity that let us try, let us step in, let us believe in the people. And this is why I feel in my own heart that Norway coming to the UN Security Council will restore the world trust to the United Nations.
I'm very thrilled to listen to your very deep faith about Norway's. Let us hope that Norway lives up to those faith and expectation. I also pray and work and ask and hope that really Norway delivers as it is expected worldwide. Moving on, as we maybe draw closer to maybe if there are people who are asking requests, I think comments people are asking, Gjermund will intervene when he has some questions from people. Moving forward, I coming from Ethiopia and living in Norway. Both in Ethiopia and in Norway, people have such a flawed understanding of our world, flawed understanding of poverty and wealth. And I always struggle with this idea of poverty and wealth. And for many people, poverty and wealth is some kind of destiny that is already, you are destined to poverty, you are destined to wealth as if that people often forget that wealth and poverty is just the conditions in which you are born, and it doesn't amount to cash. It doesn't amount to what you have. It amounts about knowledge, systems, and abilities, and hard work, and lots of including the systems that works for or against you. I mean, in many parts of the world, people are denied opportunities, and therefore they are poor. Not because they want to be poor. and not a single African wants to stay poor. But when they are denied opportunities and then they are locked in the conditions of poverty, escaping and trying to escape that, for me, is heroic. Some of those who are perishing in the seas, for me, they are heroes. They are not criminals whom smugglers are trying to ship them to Europe. They are trying to reach where there is opportunity so that they could help their brothers and sisters and mothers and fathers and so on. If Africa is to solve this problem of exodus, there should be change of system, which changes not only that the way we as Africans look at ourselves and our ability to change our destiny, but also in the way our wallet is organized so that there is opportunity for us, a fair opportunity. And there has Norway also some more thing to do, I hope.
Yeah. I think that's thank you so much for bringing that. It touches my heart because when you talk about poverty and wealth, these are they're twin brothers, and they all have different impact. Twin brothers with different impact. In a way, I'm a twin. I have a twin brother as well. But we have similar impact. But this one, in this case, poverty and wealth, these are twin brothers. They are very close. Either you are the other one or not. Either you are. So the power which I've always seen, I grew up in poverty. I grew up in first-class poverty, and like many people, it's very difficult for something good to come out of a life that is locked up and locked down in poverty. And in a way, there are people who are, in life I've learned that there are people who are too poor to understand wealth. And there are people who are too wealthy to understand poverty. So they look at poverty with a wealthy lens of life. Others also look at wealth, the poor people also look at wealth with a poverty or a poor sense of lens. And to the point that it becomes so difficult to get over it. So if we can work out, it comes down to leadership. It comes down to what is our poverty alleviation strategy. Are we humanizing it? Unless humanity can live on their own, development means nothing if it's only the few who are thriving and are living the happiest life. Somebody asked me actually 3-4 days ago that where do I expect myself if I lived in Europe with all the privileges and opportunity? What would I be doing? And I said, well, I think I would have become what I was meant to be. If I was meant to be a compassionate person who feels for the poor people, I would have remained the same, whether I was born, even if I was born in Europe or in America or in Africa. And then his next question was, if you had a chance, if you had a second chance to be born in a different continent, where would you choose? And I said, if I had the second chance to be born in a different continent, I would choose Africa. I would still choose Africa because Africa is where I was born. That's where I belong. That's where I'm supposed to be. And but any hatred or any suffering cannot make me deny my identity. It makes me just feel so compelled to address the question that comes with my identity. In this case, poverty has been almost a defining factor. In this case, continued racial discrimination against the Black people has always continued to be my struggle. But also, you made a point that the leadership back home is where the African problem continues. In Africa, we have leaders who treat their people so bad as if they're from another race. They treat their people with so much heartlessness to the point that, what is it? Because all along, even Corona has exposed African leaders the most because during the time when they kept on lying to their citizens, we have brought development. Yet for them, their families were thriving in Europe, were studying, and they would seek their medical support in Europe, in America, in Asia. But now all of a sudden with Corona, everybody became equal to the point that we are equally at risk. We are all within reach, whether you are poor or rich, you are Black or white, or whether you're a man or woman, we are all within reach. So it's a reminder. So back in Africa, the leadership has become the biggest nightmare. There are leaders in this continent that have killed more people in their own countries than Corona has killed in the whole world. They're even worse than Corona because they kill and they practice politics of poverty. The politics of poverty is keep them poor so that they can be managed. They copied so well the colonial approach to, to control, where you keep people poor so that they become beggars in their own country. They can't depend on their own. They become reliant on you. This is what our leaders have done in this continent. They refuse deliberately to bring sufficient development. But the question that we should do is, how can we prepare ourselves to build a community, a continent with sufficient capacity for emergency response? This is what we should do. This is where we should do. And that brings me to one topic that I look forward to, is how do we build and strengthen the young humanitarian leadership? Help young people grow up with a mindset that we are here to promote development. We are here to promote human rights, dignity, peace, and justice, and all these pillars. But we are here, most importantly, to respond in time and with sufficient capacity to our fellow human when they're in need of support. This is what we need, that spirit in African young people. And if I had an opportunity, that would be my next goal for the next 10 years, to work towards reinforcing and building and strengthening the local humanitarian spirit in the young African leaders, in the young African people, so that they grow to become leaders who are there for one another, should there be need.
The cheetah generation, brother, that is good.
Thank you.
Gjermund, do you have some questions from people?
Yeah.
We haven't received any questions so far, but I have a couple of topics that I would like us to touch base on before we end this session. The first topic is, it seemed like just a reflection I've done based upon what I experienced last year working with the Minister of International Development. It really struck me that we as human beings are not willing to change unless something affects us personally. That is one of the main issues, I think, when you think of the West versus the developing world, because we don't know at all like what is going on in the developing nations. We don't feel the same challenges that that you guys do, and that makes me think, like, what can we do to bridge that gap, to make us realize what is going on, and in following, what would you say, Victor, that me as a Norwegian living in Norway, what is the best thing I can do to help out? Because I think a lot of people, they want to help, but how do we help, and what's helping?
Yeah, thank you. And I'm happy that you have, from your international experience, you have seen real life, what a life in need looks like, what poverty-driven society or poverty-ridden society looks like. I think, in a way, what we need is not actually money, a lot of money, but what we need is a very good heart, the heart of care. If population in Norway do care, as they always do, is to help them look deeper into what are the tangible, local, domesticated, challenges that needs to be addressed, and where the local solution. This is where we can build in and say, we are not coming in to import or to export knowledge, but we are coming in to go on a learning journey. Like you came to Africa. To me, you did not bring development. You came on a learning journey to help you start thinking the world in a different way. The world we can be, the world we are in, the world as it should be. This is where we should. And I hope that partnership between Norwegian communities and the Norwegian population will grow. The partnership based on trust, based on love, based on humanity. It shouldn't be about partnership based on money. It shouldn't be about which country is waving the biggest check that we can partner with. Because it should be about which country is waving opening their hearts so much home and abroad that we can partner with. If we act with an open heart, it will be better than if we act or operate based on big checks. And I think this is an area that is very, very key. Money is important. Money facilitates the process. But money without heart of care is disastrous. It's actually we're just waving and how to get killed. Of course, it's also a moment. To me, I always tell my African young people that let us go knock the doors. There are people who are willing to partner. There are people who are willing to work together and promote our identity, cement our reality, and give ourselves the hope that we have to be courageous to lead with a bold and a public, demonstrate bravery, demonstrate like local, those small braveries in a way that will help us promote the real principles of humanity. I think this is where we can do much better. And I feel if we connect ourselves with the young generation of Norwegians seeking to see, understand the world as it is, and approach the world solution from the world point of view, not approaching the world solution from the individual point of view. Yes, we have foreign policy. What actually we need the most is not foreign policy. We need human policy. If you can humanize the foreign policy, we are going to get far. And we are going to bring on board everyone on board, and we are going to definitely help bring an end to the gun violence, bring an end to racial discrimination, bring an end to gender discrimination, religious intolerance, all these historical injustices, what Africa has become, so accustomed to is the life that they have been. I told people a few days ago that African child, a pain as well as glory defines the life of an African child. They grow up they're born in pain, they struggle to get out of that, they succeed, and that becomes glorious. That defines them. So if pain
cross and
as
resurrection
well as glory defines Africa's child's life, it's what we make.
Cross and resurrection.
Yeah.
Thank you. I would also like to touch base on the recent weeks' movement of Black Lives Matter and what has happened in the States, and your reflection on that. And just a reflection for me, if you look at it in an overall perspective, we have been touching base on modern day slavery here. We're touching base on poverty issues. Why is that going on? And it is to me like, also when you talk about refugees, it seemed that there is the larger question that kind of flies above our heads is the question of worth and human value. And we in practice we say that we support the human rights and all the declarations there, all the articles, but in practice we don't. And that is what comes out. That's like why you have slavery as an output. That's why you have Black Lives Matter as an output. So what's your take on that movement, and how do you see that in the global context, and also
Yes, I first of all, let me say that in as much as it is that bad and it continues to be that bad, let us not forget the learning opportunities that comes up with crises that we have been seeing lately. Disasters like Corona, we have a lot of learning opportunities. And then came in the wave, the strongest wave of racism that became so apparent. Well, to me, to begin with, as a Black person, the pain of knowing that you are just being tolerated in every society is exhausting. I don't like that feeling. It's that feeling, and I get that a lot. I go to places, I get that a lot. But neither does that pain gives me a reason to hate anybody. In fact, it gives me a reason to love everybody. Say, well, I hope that one day that person will cross on the right side of the bridge of humanity, and then we can appreciate and understand one another. So to me, I don't want to say we're a misinformed generation. We are overly informed generation. A generation that is aware of the history. A generation that's aware of the now, and a generation that's afraid of the future. And it has been, let me say that the grievances in the world today against the Black people or people of African descent, not only in America, but all over the world. It's strong. It's very, very strong. It's very, very strong to the point that the only way you can get over this is that grievances should be met with some compassion and empathy, and shouldn't be a one-time effort. It should be an ongoing process that is so active to help us abolish this evil thinking that some people of certain race are more important than the other ones. It's a sad thing that today, in the 21st century, we're even still discussing whether Black life matters or not. It's a shame. It's a shame on human race that this is what happened long, long ago. This is what we should have run over it long ago. But why has it continued to exist? Because we have continued with our minimalization of humanity. They say they are young, they are strong, they are capable, but others are weak, are vulnerable, are incompetent. I think we have a responsibility to comfort the mourning race, the African race, the people of African descent. The world owes Africa a comfort to know that we are not going to be wiped off because of our color. But one thing I also liked about it, which I was so happy, that was to see the strongest wave of humanity, Black and white alike, all over the world, getting up to resist this kind of attitude, this kind of evil practices, to say, this is not something that should happen in our time. And it gives me something that if this generation existed in 1800, Berlin Conference wouldn't have happened. It wouldn't have happened. They would have resisted the Berlin Conference. Let us colonize Africa, divide it among ourselves, become our properties. But I'm so proud of this generation. I'm so proud of young people around the world, both Black and white, and from all corners of the planet, who stood up and said, this madness must stop. It cannot continue like this. If you're a human being and you belong to the human race, you have to stop this kind of madness of underlooking other people and, looking at us as the better persons or the better humanity. But you know what? I come from Africa. Africa is like a mother, like mothers love always do. No matter how much you are, despised, you're still open to loving and caring and welcoming to everybody. So that's why I'm so happy that regardless of how despised the Black people are, I think they've been through too much. This is not the first time. It has happened before. It has continued to happen. It is still happening. It may still happen in the future. So what we need to do is just to mobilize the majority of us who are good people, who believe that we all belong together. We are all God's children. We are whole human family. We are one race. Then we can just say, yes, if one of us is suffering, whether it be Black or white, we are all suffering. So that spirit of, you touch one of us, you touch all of us. That's what I saw in the recent wave of protest around the world. And that gives me so much hope that majority of us are people who believe we belong together.
Mm.
Yeah.
I would like to say, if I can use that word. I'll let you have a concluding reflection in the end. Just like to say that it's so exciting to hear you share your thoughts, Victor. And for me as well, I really cling to hope. And might seem like a paradox, but I'm more hopeful than ever in terms of the world and how the development will go in the future. Because I see and I observed people like you, Victor, that stand up against all odds and are standing up for what is right in your society, and you believe in that, and you believe in the hope, and that's what's going to change societies. After all, like single people who like stand up for what they believe in and really makes a difference in a society. And we observed a lot of people around who do the same kind of work that you do, only like some in less magnitude, other in more, but overall it's that's what makes me really hopeful. And I think that what comes down to it is the change within us, within ourselves, that's where it needs to start.
Yeah, thank you. And yes, let me say this, that, the world is confronted with so many problems, and this is just the beginning. And probably this is not yet the worst. The worst is yet to come. But of course, in every dark clouds of rain or storm, there can also be the bright sign and beautiful, striking beauty of rainbow on one side. So that small crack can give us the brightest, most beautiful rainbow of love and humanity and peace and harmony and tolerance around the world. So this is what we have to look for. Where's that crack that can strike the lights in the dark clouds of injustice and intolerance and suffering around the world? And this is not something that we should give up. We shouldn't look any further. We should look at ourselves as we're the solution to the current trend of events. And I love that, as you said it, I'm proud that I have made a choice. When I was a young boy, it was a very simple question: do I also pick up the gun to go and fight those who are fighting me? I said, no, I'm not going to pick up the gun. I'm going to remain at home and promote peace, as opposed to going into fight and kill my enemy. I made a choice when I was young. Along the way, as I was growing up in my work I'm doing, I became attractive somehow. Some people started getting interested in my work, giving me opportunities all over the world: go and study abroad, or go on and do this kind of things. So the question was simple: should I go out of the country and study and pursue my career and develop myself and become a perfect person, or I remain in the community to protect the community? I remain in the community. I chose to remain at home, and it is what transformed my world. It's what has transformed my thinking, my mindset about Africa. I love Africa so much that is deep in my DNA, to the point that I will be the last person to leave the continent. I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to remain in Africa regardless of the circumstance at hand. But given that said, I love the world. I've seen the beautiful part of the world. And I feel like there are a majority of us people who are driven with good faith, good intention, and who believe in one another. We should just come together. We shouldn't wait until disaster knocks our door, then we come to rescue. We should hear that it is happening, whether it be in China, whether it be in India, in Africa, in Latin America. We shouldn't wait until the pain, the suffering knocks our doors, or we shouldn't wait when death rings our doorbell, then we start responding. We got to do that. We have to go there and respond, and know that if one of us gets corona in any part of the world, we can all get it. And we are experiencing this right now. So I want to say, we are leaders in all our spaces. I want us to be led by the fact that we have a painful history as Africans, but we want to teach history not with intent to seek revenge, but we need to teach our history with intent to promote healing and harmony and move on as a race. But of course, we have heard a lot about, let me say last, about the Black Lives Matter. I knew that even if they were shouting and yapping and yelling and chanting that Black Lives Matter, it is because they believe that all lives matters. And just because the Black lives are in danger, they couldn't sit and wait. And that's why they took to the street. I'm so proud, and I can only say bravo to the people who walked to the street to topple those statutes of injustice, of colonialism, of slave trades. This is what we should be happy about. We don't need to be that generation with very strong bonds of violence, very strong genes of hatred, or deep with the DNA of injustice. We need to be that generation who are rooted in peace and love and care, and who knows that we can all do. We belong together. Let us just move forward, and we have to work for what is good for all of us. That's what I can say, and I appreciate that. Let us bring our voice to the suffering of other people so that we can speak for them. If I knock your door, you don't need to wait until when we have informal partnership before you can help me. You need to see that is suffering, somebody's doing something. So this is where we should be leading our continent and our planet. And we share this planet. Nobody is going to go anywhere. But also let's know that with climate change, maybe one day, think about that. What would happen one time if one part of the planet become inhabitable to the point that for humans survival, they have to move to another part of the planet. Imagine if Corona threatened to wipe one continent, what would happen? They would run away. We are meant to move. That's why being a refugee is not a crime. We need to give people a chance. Know that next time there could be another disaster that will force us to move. So give dignity now. If you want it, it might be given to you next time. I pray God bless everybody and let us work together for the good of humanity. We can bring this to a great, great, great opportunity, and blessings to all.
Thank you, and thank you, Roger, also, who is commenting, saying thank you very much for a very inspiring discussion. He is commenting on that, and I sincerely am very thankful to get to know you, Victor, and keep the good work. And some of us are in Europe to help and serve Europe as God's ambassadors here, and this country also is a developing country, needs some assistance. There are areas where there is a need here too. Yes, the good earth is rich with resources which should be shared with everyone, and one human race with origin in Ethiopia, where everyone is an Ethiopian on earth at the end of the day. But we should keep a good spirit, that even when it looks like hopeless, there is all the reasons around us to be hopeful, optimistic about the future. And thank you for this inspiring intervention. Thank you for the discussion, and thank you, Gjermund, for organizing this. And wish you all a best day and best of luck in the coming days and weeks and months.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate that. And you know, Ethiopia is also a country in need of healing, and let's work together.
Yes, amen to that.
God bless you.
God bless you.
Okay. Thank you for today. Bye.
Thank you very much, and thanks for everybody who participated online. We did not get to see you, but I hope, Rogers, I look forward to meeting you and any other persons online.
Ida is there.
My friend Grace is from Lira, and she's retiring in September, so I have a standing invitation. Perhaps our paths will cross in Lira.
You're welcome home. You don't need a visa, just come. Thank you everybody, and I appreciate your time. Thanks for being with us online.
Bye-bye.
Okay.